So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the agricultural opportunities we have going on in Page. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. So we're going to talk about the Page Farmers Market and then just a little bit about the Page Community Garden that's trying to get started. And then kind of what's happened in the past in Page. And maybe some of that can get started again, or just so that people know it was started in the past. But the Page Farmers Market, I think my years are correct. So I think I took the Master Gardeners class in 2016, and I think it was 2017 when some of us from the class had, along with a bunch of community members, had started up the farmers market. And the city had given us a few different locations to choose from. And that was at the same time when they were starting the parks renewal in Page and getting grants for that. So it was kind of decided that we would be at John C. Page City Park. That was before they put the sidewalk in that's kind of going through the middle of the park. So we were over by the trees that's over by where the police station is now. And it was kind of over there to start. It's a picture from one of the first ones. You can kind of see some of the vendors set up in the background, and then some of the master gardeners and volunteers. We had one table for people to ask questions and had some information about different things going on in the city. Over time, we had gotten a book for the master gardener class for at the table so people could answer questions for people. But when we first started it, the vendor fees were $25 per season or $2 per Saturday for the vendors. The farmers market provided tables, chairs, and the pop-ups, and we were using a key for the community center bathroom. And we were needing 2 to 3 volunteers per Saturday when it was like that because of all the equipment. So it was like either a trailer full of stuff or somebody with a truck and those kind of things. So it was kind of intensive for whoever the volunteers were. And you would set up the trifold stands at the intersections, bring tables and chairs and pop-ups, set up the master gardeners table, and then collect the fees for the different booths and things like that. So that's kind of how it looked like at the beginning. And that was all with donations from, I don't know if it was True Value or Ace then, but they had donated tables and chairs for us. And then we had bought the pop-ups and just different things. So that's kind of how it started. Then the fees stayed the same, but we decided it was too much work for the volunteers. So each of the vendors just brought their own tables, chairs, and pop-ups instead of it being that way. And then we only needed 1 volunteer per Saturday instead of having 2 to 3 volunteers per Saturday. Eventually we couldn't use the community bathrooms anymore because the alarm got triggered a bunch and the police had to come down and it started to get kind of expensive. So that stopped. There is a porta potty there now that can be used, but we can't use the community center bathrooms anymore. There was also a social media volunteer who helped with articles in the Chronicle and helped put pictures on Facebook. We had a Facebook page, Page Farmers Market, and helped with some things on the radio and some signage. And then we also started to get some vendors from other cities. So Flagstaff Forestdale Farms also participated. And then if people heard that things were ripe and they were coming through areas, they would try to get things at a cheaper rate in mass quantities. So like when peaches were ready in Colorado, somebody was coming through and picked up peaches, and honey from different places, apples from different places. So stuff that was grown small, but they were able to get some higher quantities. And then we would sell that at the, at the main table and kind of use that for there. So it was 1 volunteer per Saturday. The Chamber of Commerce was still keeping all the equipment for us and things like that. And then we still had the Master Gardeners table. And then we also had pamphlets there and information about the community, different events going on, those kind of things. Some pictures from the farmer's market, our little baby tiny grapes that we get in Page in the middle there. So I talked to Lynn Cormier, who works for the city, and I talked to Kathy Kerr, who handles the applications at the community center for events and those kind of things. And they really want it going again. They really would love the farmers market going again. In the past, the farmers market itself was paying for insurance, but Lynn said that the city of Page will cover the insurance now, which is awesome. Absolutely wonderful. And then there's usually a $25 per event fee. So that would be like every Saturday, it would be $25. And she said that they would waive that also. So it's really something that the city wants to get behind and have happen again. So they're willing to waive all those fees, which is great. Um, the tables have now been next to that sidewalk that's kind of going through. So like if you go through the community center parking lot, people can park in the community center and then just walk over to the sidewalk. It also allows for wheelchair accessibility and stroller accessibility. And then being over there, it's also visible from Lake Powell Boulevard. So that's kind of why people moved it to over there. It's also close to the porta potty that's there. So there's a porta potty there if anybody needs it. Since the city of Page is willing to cover the costs, if there is that main table that's like a Master Gardeners table or a volunteer table or whatever we wanted to call it, they would like it to be for open to all businesses to put their flyers out there. In the past, the Chamber of Commerce had helped out with a lot of stuff, so it was more just Chamber of Commerce businesses. But since the city of Page is going to be footing the bill in the future, they would like it to be any business can have their information there, and any city events can have their information there. So that would kind of be like at the info table. Produce can also be sold there, those kind of things. I think we could manage it with just one volunteer a Saturday, which would cut down on the amount of volunteers that we need. I think that could continue with just one. They also asked if at the table we could have like the Lake Powell Life magazine and also the stickers for the Lake Powell Life app, which I thought would be fine if that stuff was out there. These are some more pictures from the farmer's market and some eggs and different things and fruits and veggies for sale. So in the future, if people wanted to try to get together to try to make this happen again, the group running the market would decide if there was a vendor fee and what it would be used for. What Lynn has said is that the city has to have one person to spearhead it because they need a point of contact for emergencies, or if there's a large event in the park and for one Saturday there couldn't be a farmer's market, anything like that. If there's any police emergencies during the day and they have to let people know about things that are going on, so there has to be one person to spearhead it, which I don't know if we have one person that would be willing to be around for every Saturday from May to September or May to October. I feel like that's a lot to ask somebody to do. So what I was gonna propose, if there is a group of us that kind of want to get together to do this, if there was a vendor fee, I'm wondering if we asked the city if there could just be one phone number that was like the farmer's market phone. And we buy a farmer's market phone and buy some minutes for it. Like we could do one at Walmart or something like that. And then people sign up to volunteer at certain times. And part of that is being in charge of the phone. So there would still only be one phone number that they had to call. But it might not be the same person answering the phone all the time. So like I might sign up for a week in May and a week in July, and somebody else might sign up for just a week in June, and maybe we could come up with a list of people that would be willing to do that. In the past, we did it from 8 to 11 on Saturday mornings, and it ran approximately May 11th to September 28th. But I know sometimes people had said that they were getting in produce later, so we extended longer into October. It went a little bit longer. There's some more pictures from the farmers market. And I don't know. I loved it for our community. It was small. Page is small, so I feel like it was fine that it was small because we're small. But it was like people would go down and hang out, and like their kids would come and their dogs would come and people would talk in the park, and a lot of times people would come and spend like 2 hours there, just to go get veggies and soap and whatever else. And I just loved it. I thought it was absolutely wonderful for our community. It was definitely small, but I thought it was wonderful.
I would really love to be there Saturday mornings. I try to be very active physically, and I definitely need a push. So the push would be to volunteer on Saturday mornings. I would have to get up and go out.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And a lot of people, if I would say the people that are volunteering and setting up their tables are usually driving there, but a lot of people would like walk their dogs over or go for a walk with their kids on Saturday morning. Like it just, I don't know. I just thought it was really nice for our community. So there has been some changes as far as insurance goes from when we had done it in the past. So the the Page Farmers Market insurance that the city would provide would cover vegetables, fruit, cut flowers, eggs, and in the past people had brought turkey eggs, quail eggs, chicken eggs. I'm missing duck eggs, and it would also cover pasteurized honey. So those would be the things that the farmers and market insurance would cover. And if you were selling any of those things, you wouldn't need your own insurance, which is great to not have to have that, because usually that's a lot of people don't make a ton of money off of bringing their stuff to the farmers market. So if you have to pay for insurance, it usually makes it prohibitive. Um, so if you were selling any of these things, there wouldn't be a cost at all to you to set up a table at the farmers market. Some of the people, we did have somebody selling honey in the past, and also starts for plants. Those things would be okay too. What's not covered by the farmers market insurance that's provided by the city. So there was a change with Coconino County Health Department since we had done it in the past. And now, if there's anything that's prepared food, even if it's jarred, so if it's jams, jellies, baked goods, hot sauces, any of those things, in the past, they could be under that same insurance. In the future, they cannot. So in the past, they had to have a food handlers and have their kitchen inspected. But after that, they could be under the Page Farmers Market insurance. In the future, you have to go through Coconino County Health Department for that. And it sounds like they are collecting a fee. And I have no idea what the fee is, how much it is. I don't know if it's a like for the year fee or if it's a per event fee. But if people wanted to do any of those things, they would have to contact Coconino County Health Department on their own, and probably still need to do Arizona food handlers and have a kitchen inspection. But there would probably also be a vendor fee for them. Um, in the past, the only thing that needed a separate vendor fee was the food trucks. We had some food trucks come on some occasions that did like biscuits and gravy or Navajo tacos on a morning, but now those all would. Um, what Lynn and Kathy said is that the crafts and non-edible items, so like soaps and oils and jewelry and those kind of items, in the past were covered under that insurance. They don't think it's covered under that insurance now. And they said what people have to do is just contact Kathy Kerr and talk to her about it. We had some ladies who did like a tie-dye booth. We had Another Way had done a booth with like secondhand stuff in the past. We had some different things. We had people do a massage booth. But all of those people would have to contact Kathy Kerr individually. The city for sure would cover would be the fruits, vegetables, pasteurized honey, cut flowers, And I can't remember the other thing I said before. Something. The other one. These are some more pictures from, and the eggs. That was the other one from the farmer's market. So growing around Page now. So since we started the farmer's market, it seems like there's more, like in addition to more people growing in their backyard, there's also more organizations growing. So the high school started growing in the greenhouse again. They had done that a long time ago in the past, and they started back up again. And on a few Saturdays, they had a table of things for sale from that. Desert View, 3rd to 5th grade, also has a garden outside. I'm not sure if that made it through COVID or not, but they started some gardens. I'm not sure if they would want to sell or if that's just for families to take home. Another way was starting greenhouses at the shelter, down off of, I can't think of the name of that street right now, but off of Hall Road. And I'm not sure if that is going or not. And then in Compass, the house on Calle Hermosa, they had a massive garden going, like absolutely huge, plus a greenhouse. And they were using that for clients and for therapy and those kind of things. But they have a huge garden over in Calle Hermosa that I'm hoping is going to be going still this year. Park Service was also using the greenhouse at the high school. So they were doing native starts for when they would do re-veg in the area. And then All Nations Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is on the corner of Lake Powell Boulevard and Aqua across from the high school, their gardens are like massive now. They're awesome. And they have huge areas and they planted fruit trees. And I know that they also have their starts for sale in the spring, which is great. And I think a lot of their stuff is for parishioners, but I think when they have extras, especially with the starts, I think they're available to the community. And then I thought this was kind of cool. This is on the little Facebook page for the farmers market, but Page Hospital had started an herb garden. So I think it was kind of nice that just kind of inspiring things around the community that we're going. Brian Carey has kind of spearheaded, he's not available tonight, so I just wanted to give some basic information, but he's definitely the one to contact about this. But he is spearheading starting up a Page community garden where people who either don't have a backyard to grow in or don't have the right soil to grow in or whatever it may be, can grow at the community garden. And so it's across from the Maverick station on Route 89. This is kind of the rough sketch that he gave of kind of what they're thinking for right now. So they're going to start smaller and they can expand as needed. They're going to use chain link fence for a perimeter, which so then it can be added to if need be. And they're going to, just kind of, it'll be a work in progress. There might be some raised beds constructed this spring, and there might be a mixture of ground level and raised beds. And what they are looking at doing, they're looking at doing reclaimed water that would be Class A water, and they're going through with how to ensure the safety of that. So they're working on that. So I don't think he's going to have too much more information for everybody until they get that figured out. But it would be reclaimed water. And it sounds like the water would then, the water in the land, it sounds like would either be free or minimal charge to anybody gardening there. So kind of exciting. In the past, I don't know if anybody knows Christy and Dusty Allen, but they had done kind of a CSA. They live in Perea and they had done like a weekly rate for veggies and fruits, and they would do a drop off at your house for whatever was grown that week. And then Bountiful Baskets is definitely not locally grown, but it's something that had been in Page for a while, and you get lots of fruits and veggies for pretty cheap. And that was picked up weekly or every other week. It was over, I think it was called Omni at the time, but the computer store that is over by, computer store that used to be over by Slackers, kind of over by where Another Way was. And you could either do organic or not organic baskets. And that was around for a few years. So as far as the future of the farmers market goes, Lynn had said that since the farmers market is outdoors, that we could restart this summer or early fall if there was interest. She said that the city wouldn't have a problem with that with COVID regulations since it is outside. If anyone is interested in starting up, I don't know if there's anybody else to kind of start it up besides me right now. So I'm willing to be that person that people email. So that's my email address. And then I have a list of some of the people that volunteered in the past. I still have their emails. So I'm wondering if I could get, if anybody's interested from this group plus the group from the past, and see, in the past we had just done monthly meetings, and we met monthly and just kind of figured out what we needed to do. I think a lot of the legwork is already done because of the group from the past. So hopefully it could be pretty easy. So if anybody is willing to volunteer with it, I think it would be great to start it back up again. I think we're probably going to need at least 6 or 7 people to volunteer so that we could have all the weekends covered and that phone coverage covered. And then if we do get enough people, then I would take that communal phone idea to Lynn and to Kathy and ask them if they think that that would work or not. Anybody have any questions or want to know about it in the past?
Not a question, but are you aware of the man that brings the oranges and the citrus every week or two to Paige and he sells them at the hotel?
I am not, and that sounds great. Do you mind putting that information in the chat?
Yeah, I can try, I can get it.
He's a guy who buys like a whole carload of stuff and he takes it from Phoenix, I think, all the way to Salt Lake, and it stops in Paige. And then
Overnight.
there's a bunch of people that go and just buy from him. But yeah, we'll put it
That
in.
would be great.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there any chance of starting Bountiful baskets back up? I mean, that was such a good program. They had olive oil. That was amazing.
So I don't know. I know with that, it's all volunteer. So, you know, nobody's getting paid with that. I think the biggest thing is you have to have somebody that's willing to have their business be the storefront for the drop off and pickup. I don't know if that's the only reason why it stopped, or if Bountiful Baskets wasn't getting enough interest from Paige and that's why it stopped. So I'm not sure if, you know, I think those are the only 2 answers that it could be. But I don't know if anybody, I don't have a business in Paige, but I don't know if anybody does have a business, if they would be willing to be the storefront. Maybe we could contact them and see if that's something that could happen again.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Alissa. That was awesome. You guys did a lot of work up there getting the market started, and I loved all the photos that you shared.
They were ones that were on the farmers market Facebook page. And I have to say, we tried for the longest time to get it started, and the insurance was super prohibitive. And we were like meeting all the time and we couldn't figure out anything. And then these 2 ladies that had helped us start the Tuba City Farmers Market came to one of our meetings and were like on their phones, like bloop, 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 bloop. Oh, it's only a few $100s. You can just go through this co-op for farmers market insurance. And we're like, what? And I think if we had made contact with them like months earlier, it probably could have gone a little bit smoother. But I feel like you meet the right people at the right time. So super thankful that they had come to our meeting. Otherwise, I don't think we ever would have gotten past that jumping off point ever. But they really helped with figuring out a cheaper way to do insurance.
Yeah, and that's amazing that the city is going to pay the insurance for these growers for those certain products. That's so awesome. That should be encouragement.
That and waiving the fee all the time. And they said that
Oh, yeah.
$25 event fee. And they said even for that, like even if there was another event in the park, they were like, it usually doesn't take up the whole park, any of those events. So even if there is like the chili cook-off or the 4th of July with the cars, or, the farmer's market might just be a good addition for that. So it wasn't saying that because there's another event that farmer's market couldn't also take place. It would just need to be making sure that like everybody has their areas kind of thing.
Well, thank you so much for all of your hard work on that. And as I mentioned to Karina, if the volunteering with the Alissa and the farmers market would definitely count towards your master gardener hours. So it looks like Jackee's here, which I'm really excited about. So I'm going to make Jackee a co-host. And Jackee, do you want me to share your presentation? Are you having connect?
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
please. Yeah, no, my internet's going really slow today, so I'm even using my audio in case we lose my video. At least you all can hear me.
Okay.
Thanks for doing that, Gail.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for being here with us, Jackee. So I'll introduce you after I get
Sure.
my screen shared. All right, you guys all see it? Everything's good? Okay, well, we have a special last minute, thank you so much, Jackee, guest tonight. So I'd like to introduce everybody to Jackee Alston, who has been a Coconino Master Gardener for how long? Since 2014?
No, actually 2010.
2010.
When did it start? Yeah, 2010 or yeah, spring of 2010.
But Jackee is a big part of our Master Gardener community in Coconino County, and she started the Grow Flagstaff Seed Library. And I thought that I would invite her to share with you all how she got started, because it's a really great service that we provide for our community of gardeners. And hopefully this will inspire you to maybe get something started up in Page. I know from the first class, we had some questions about the seed library, and it seemed like there was some interest. So with that, I will let Jackee take it away.
Great, thanks, Gail. So I understand maybe you are even interested in starting a seed library. Is that correct? Just head nods or thumbs up? Yeah, head nods. Okay, I've seen a few. That's awesome. All right, well then that's kind of the direction I took on my presentation, is just kind of talking about how we started a seed library, some resources available to you, and then also maybe some mistakes we made and maybe things that you could do as you started. Also, I work for a seed organization, a conservation seed organization called Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance, where we connect seed libraries from all over, not just the Rocky Mountains, but from all over the world in a lot of ways. So on our website, if you end up getting one, please go register, because it's great to connect to other libraries all over. So like Gail said, we named it Grow Flagstaff Seed Library. Go ahead, Gail, and advance the slide. And this is what it looks like pre-COVID. And the idea is that we really wanted to share stories and share seeds. That's where you can find us, on that Facebook page, and that's the physical address. That's also Gail's office. Poor Gail has to house all of the seeds, all of our stock, in her closet in her office. Before she came on, she inherited that closet full of stuff, and so I'm always bugging her as I pull stuff out. But anyway, so that's where we are, same as at the extension office. A lot of seed libraries start in public book libraries. And that's great too, but you know, the sky's the limit of where you can put a library as long as you have dedicated people and passionate people that will take care of it and make sure that it's taken care of. The first seed library I ever found before I worked for Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance, I was a master gardener at the time. I was in Brandon, Vermont, and for a different work trip, I worked in children's publishing too. And I saw a little tiny kiosk of just a card catalog with about 9 different boxes in this little tiny town of Brandon, Vermont. And I got so excited because I had never heard of a seed library, and the librarians there started that, and that happens a lot. Librarians get excited and they start these kind of things. Okay, so go ahead, Gail. Now this is what we look like during COVID. We're just outside the door in the extension office. And Gail and Hattie hustled up, rounded up all these different ammo boxes, and then the Master Gardener Association, the Coconino County Master Gardener Association, gave us a grant to buy that little newspaper kiosk. So people can still access them, and by people I mean also you, because you are Coconino County residents. You're welcome if you're ever in Flag to go and visit it and see what you think, see what you find. And we started, actually, this is our official soft opening day, was October 24th, 2015. And it kind of, that spring, right before, I just kind of said at a Master Gardener meeting, hey, why if we don't have a seed library after seeing the one in Vermont? And everyone's like, yeah, go for it, let's do it. They got really excited. And so they jumped in and said, go to it. And so we kind of got a big group together at first. And then, you know, those things kind of, when it comes to volunteers, things kind of swell and shorten, but we have a very dedicated group now of excuse me, Master Gardeners who really take care of this. And so I founded it, but it doesn't mean that I'm the only one that's passionate about it. And that's really what it takes to make these things work. Okay, Gail. So there's this great book, if you're interested, called Seed Libraries by Cindy Connor. And she kind of lays out what seed libraries are and how to start them and experiences she had. The book's actually kind of getting old now. I think it might be 15 years old. But this is how she defines a seed library. She says, a seed library is an institution that leads or shares seeds. It is distinguished from a seed bank in that the main purpose is not to store or hold seeds against possible destruction, but to disseminate them to the public, which preserves the shared plant varieties through propagation and further seed sharing. So it's not like we think of a seed vault in Norway. There's the Svalbard seed vault that's way under snow. It's not to save these things and not grow them out. It's actually a living seed storage. It's where everybody gets together and they share their seeds. And then we have a repository, and then they're supposed to be grown out year after year. They don't last. Hey, Gail. And by last, I'll explain that later. Seeds last a lot longer than we give them credit for. It's just that we don't just save them and not use them. It's that they're better to grow out and adapt year after year. So this is when we all got together, this was what we decided was our mission. Not necessarily just to save stories, but really to get people growing. Our mission was to make gardening opportunities more accessible for the people of Flagstaff. Now that's extended because of being in the extension office, which is awesome, to countywide. And I even invite people in Navajo County to please you're welcome to come and take seeds and grow them. And we provide this free repository for locally adapted seeds. So the idea is to keep growing them year to year so they're adapted if we can get people that will grow them out and return them. So that's where it's kind of like a book library. Is instead of just returning the book, you're returning the next season of seeds. And just we ask that if you can, bring back double what you took. If you can't, then that's okay too, right? Because our mission is looking for what's accessible. So as you think about starting your seed library, I would really recommend you find your mission and find what it is that's really the most important thing, and then let that be your focus as you move through. Okay, Gail. And all these pictures are from my garden area, so feel free to ask about pretty plants because I like talking about plants too. So that's inside the seed library. We've really gone down in what people are collecting this year because of COVID close. And it really, I think it's because the word didn't get out that we had this kiosk. So we only had 500 seeds checked out so far since shut down since last March. And we usually have double to triple that normally. but people are checking them out. People want to grow. And as most of you gardeners know, this last year it was really hard to find seeds, and a lot of seed companies had to shut down. In fact, some of my friends that have seed companies right now, they're 5 years out behind in their grow outs for their seed companies, because seeds are such a hot thing right now, because people were home, people got interested in gardening and sourdough baking and all those things that we were home to do. So we had some use. Go ahead, Gail. All right, so what are the benefits to a seed library? So obviously those are eggs on top of that. So we aren't growing eggs as seeds, but it's a good reminder what a seed is. So the benefits of having a seed library is that, like we talked about, you get that locally adapted seeds. Every year, those seeds are saving that information and transmitting it about where they're growing. And with the way that we see the erratic climate changes, that's a great thing, because that means right in our communities, we're keeping things where we know that they are as adapted as they possibly could be to grow. It's also more affordable. I know for me, I buy a package of seeds and I'm not using the whole package. And so it's great to be able to share. And that's perfectly fine if you're not just growing your seeds, but you're sharing just your seed packets. That works too. That's great. Also, what you can do is you can reach out to some of these seed companies and ask if they'll donate. And they are always so generous and willing to do that. So that's a great place to start. But it's still affordable to go and get free seeds. Even if you're getting a handful of different packets, it's a lot cheaper to do it that way than buying plants or seed starts, or even just seeds year after year. It also helps tell stories. I can't even go into how many different great stories we have of seeds that have been saved, seeds that have been found, traditional seeds that we have now in the seed library that people are growing, like found in clay pot type stories for one Hubbard squash, and then beans. We have beans that are like that too. So these are stories that say beautiful things about culture and heritage of a community, of a space, of a place. So that's great to get those stories. Or my grandmother used to grow these seeds. I love getting stories like that. And this was her favorite color of sweet pea. I mean, I love getting seeds, like stories like that about the seeds. You also know that you're getting pure seeds, and by pure seeds, I mean they're not treated with chemicals, because we know where they were grown and where they're coming from. We also know that they're going to be pure to parents, where their genetics are going to be true to each one. We may not know sometimes if seeds are patented or if they're genetically modified organisms or GMO seeds. But when we keep seeds in our seed library, we know what we're getting generation after generation. And after about the 7th generation, we're actually getting seeds of a variety well adapted to the area. It also preserves diversity. There's been a huge change in the last several years about seeds that there used to be so many different varieties of plants that were grown by farmers and gardeners just 100 years ago. By 1906, they figure in a National Geographic article that we've lost 96% of those different varieties of vegetables and fruits that were grown in the U.S. because now we have a handful of varieties that people were growing in larger quantities. Next slide. All right, so how does our seed library work? Well, there is a membership form. It's pretty minimal information. We just want to know about you, where you are, how to get a hold of you, what you're growing, your experience growing, if any. It doesn't have to be any, but just kind of get a feel for who's using the library. We set it up to 5 packets a visit. That's just so that people have some skin in the game, so that they come and they're meaning to not just collect anything and everything, but that things are actually going to grow and be grateful for. There's no problem if people take more. It's just a matter of really keeping that limited. I've had people come and take 76 different seeds, plant them in March. Then we had a 1.5 feet of snow like we do today up here in down here in Flagstaff, and they lost their whole crop, and then that was no big deal to them. Well, they took 74 packets of seeds and planted them too early. So those are the kind of things that we want to help people with by giving them just little bits at a time. And also we ask that you document what you take by telling us what varieties you have. So that way we know what we're low in stock with, who has what, in case maybe you have some seeds that you can share when you're starting to get those. So it's all honor system. It's not like we're going to penalize anyone if they don't. Next slide, please. This is how we have it organized. We have it alphabetized by common name, not by scientific name. My background, all my degrees are in botany, but it's too hard for people, and even me, like, what was the common name? What was the scientific name? But rather keep it simple and make it a common name so that people can know it. That's rhubarb right there my husband's holding. We do have rhubarb seeds, I think, but it's better to grow those sometimes from cuttings. But yeah, so by common name. And then just we have it marked as red, is that there's a difficulty saving it, and meaning that it could cross-pollinate with other varieties, like squash, pumpkins. You know, they'll cross-pollinate with gourds or other squash, or cabbages, brassicas. Those things take a long time for them to go to seed, and then they will also cross-pollinate. Those are little red labels. Green labels are things that easy. They self-pollinate, and you can take the seeds and know what you're going to get the next year. And then on the packets, there's information about planting the seeds and growing and what you can expect, but there's also more information we put in the dividers and the binders as much as we can. Next slide. So returning seeds, really, we already talked about this, but keeping things, try to be true to type, pure seeds. The more documentation when people return seeds, the better. I love getting, like I said, these stories plus experiences people had growing. It helps other people to know, like, this didn't germinate very well, or this one only grew on the south side of my house where it was warmer. And then we database all that information. Go ahead, Gail. So COVID, we haven't been packing, but that's going to start up again, luckily. We're all getting vaccinated. I'm vaccinated, Gail is, I know Hattie is. So we'll start doing seed packing, and we do that 4 Thursdays from 10 to 2. If you're ever in Flagstaff and like to stop by the extension office and see how we do it, you're more than welcome to come and stop by and take a tour and maybe help package some seeds. What we do is just take the larger bundles. I actually am going through my own personal seeds. Here's seeds I saved in paper towels, or seeds I buy, and then we break them down into smaller packages in envelopes like this. And buying these online is a lot cheaper than buying them in Office Max. So I'll order a bunch, say from Amazon or somewhere, it's about half the price. And then we put different labels on them, as you saw the picture of that earlier. Hey, Gail. This was a quote from one of your resources I'll give you here in a second. It's called seedlibraries.net. And that is Rebecca Newburn. And she basically lays it all out. She gives everyone forms and dividers and any kind of papers and information that you could possibly want to start a seed library. She's got it on her website. She's got it all set up so that you can print or take whatever you want from other seed libraries experience, from her experience there in the Bay Area. But this is what she says: seed libraries can be as diverse as the communities they come from. There's no right way to do it. It can be a small box of seeds or an entire network of seed libraries with interlibrary loans and everything in between. And that's so true, especially COVID. We've really seen people adapt and change how they do things, whether they have a bicycle mobile library service or little libraries. I'm so excited to see how many of these little free seed libraries have cropped up all over the United States and beyond. And then there are different ways to do it. Like this picture right here is down in Phoenix. There's an organization called Great American Seed Up, and they do bulk seeds. And this is how we got our seed library really started. Plus, when I moved a few years ago and we weren't getting a lot of return because my garden wasn't as big, this helped us also replenish a lot of our seed stock. So there are things like that that are easier to do. Hey, Gail. Sorry, I know there's a delay with me, so I can't see the picture until probably will after everyone else can. There we go. So there's that link, seedlibraries.net, to visit. I'm also happy to help you. I'm really excited to hear that some of you are interested in starting a seed library. So you're welcome to call me, text me. That is actually my cell phone number, or email me there at cocogardenprojects@gmail.com. We're also seeing even this East Flagstaff Public Library. It took Hattie and I really tried to get the seed library first in a library, and they just didn't have the space. They weren't interested. And now we have some new librarians that are just so excited. They're just moving forward, COVID or not COVID, to get their own little kiosk of seed libraries going. With or without our help, they're just so excited. And I'm grateful to see that things like that, satellite seed libraries are cropping up all over, even in Flagstaff, and I'm sure that the same thing will happen in Page. So there are all these different ways that can be done, but why reinvent the wheel? You're welcome to reach out, and we can all help each other. And that's kind of what we've done with the East Flagstaff. It's worked out well for us to have it in the extension office because we always have eyes on it. People do get frustrated because it's kind of a 9 to 5 open thing instead of later after work hours. And so I'm grateful to this East Flagstaff Library because there's another option for people to get seeds. Hey, Gail. So there's the other link again. The other cool thing going on right now is there's always a seed library summit, but it's usually associated with the Heirloom Expo in Santa Rosa. And instead, since that's been canceled the last 2 years, we're going virtual. So Rebecca Newburn, the one that does the seed library, has us all organized to do a virtual seed library summit. It's free, and I would really encourage you to jump on, to register, and to jump on when you can and hear some things. I'll be speaking, and a lot of my other cohorts, colleagues will be speaking on different things at Seed Library Summit. I'll be talking about basic seed saving. We'll have to be talking about patenting, which can affect seed libraries. So that would be another great one to attend. And so I would really encourage you to sign up and come. It's going to be a great resource, even if it's just to meet other seed librarians and see what they're doing. So everyone's doing different things in different ways, but not in reinventing the wheel, which is awesome. It's been really exciting to see all the creativity with everyone. All right, next slide. And then beyond the seed library, just to get you thinking, we also did a community seed swap every end of March for the last 6 or 7 years. And then last year and this year we weren't able to with COVID, but just thinking about even doing a seed swap is a great way to get the interest going about seeds. If you can't find a location, if someone stores the seeds in a cool place, a cold place, and then brings them out, other people bring their seeds, and it's a way to get together. You know, and it was great to hear about your farmers market. That's another way to share seeds, and we've done that in the past here on the Wednesday community market in Flagstaff as well. Hey, Kale. And I mentioned the Flagstaff one. They're calling it the Little Seed Library at the East one. So we already talked about that. We can go ahead and go past that. And then this one's also just thinking outside the box. Like I said, with COVID, things have really changed, but seed libraries are moving forward. The one on the top right corner is a picture of Rebecca Newburn, the one that has seedlibraries.net, her seed library in the Bay Area. It couldn't be in the library because the library was closed, so she did put a little seed library out as well and really kept information going about that. The one at the top right is one of our students with Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance. She was starting a native seed library in Maricopa County, just here south of us, and she doesn't have a picture of what she's doing, but she's actually doing a mail-in service. She's with a mail service, and she has several locations. It's just she's on fire, and it's great to see people wanting to grow native seeds, and she's doing a great thing with that. And then the Ogden Seed Exchange in Utah has been going for many years, and since they couldn't this spring meet in person either, they all made it in the Google Doc. Everyone has this person has this kind of seeds to share. This is how you get a hold of them. And everyone is keeping their information. And it's not a whole lot of work for the person coordinating, because that person, he's a art teacher, English teacher for a high school. And he doesn't have a lot of time. He has like 5 kids, but he is able to get everyone organized by just using a Google Doc and how to get a hold of seeds. And then that bottom right one is the Pima County seed library, which is at 8 or 9 locations. And I think theirs has been subscription too since COVID has been closed. Next slide. So just really quick, just why save seeds? So you can start a seed library without saving seeds, but to keep things going, just putting a plug in for that is it keeps your library going. If you have some dedicated people, if not yourself, saving the seeds so that things can go. We've already talked about how it preserves genetic diversity. And then it keeps you from asking for seeds or buying seeds each year. And it's so exciting to share those successes with each gardener as they talk to each other through the connections that are made with the seed library. And seed plant breeding was an amateur thing. This is a Carol Deppe. She has several plant books, 2 gardening books that are really interesting. And she's a plant breeder by education and now is retired and gardens. And she talks about this, and it's so true. Plant breeding wasn't a thing for just scientists, or plant breeding thing wasn't just for a lab. Plant breeding was what gardeners did with each other to share that information. So I would encourage you to do that. Next slide. Just really quick, if you want me to hit on this, Gail, are you going to talk about seed saving, or should I just skip these? I'm really not going in any detail more than 2 slides.
Jackee, you're fine. My presentation, I can like totally speed it up. It's going to be really short, so you can take as much time as you need. And no, I'm not going to be talking about seed saving. I'm going to just show them some of the really small scale farms that we have in Flagstaff.
Okay, all right, that's right. You're talking about that today. You have a propagation one, so I'll just talk about what I threw in here for now. Seed saving is a lot simpler than people think. You plant a seed, nature does the work, right? It goes to harvest, and then you collect the seed. And if you find something you like, it doesn't have to be that technical, like this is the variety, I planted it here, this is the GPS location where I grew it. But it can be, this tasted good, I was eating it at a restaurant, I kept the seed. That stuff's that simple. Okay. Or it can be that complicated if you want it to, that's great too. Okay, next slide. So I would suggest, as you think about starting your seed library, is think about 5 things that you can save from your garden now to get ready for your seed library. And those 5 things are tomatoes, peppers, beans, peas, and lettuce. Now, tomatoes have a semi, next slide, maybe Gail, maybe I have it in here still. I did pull quite a bit out, so it wasn't so long. These are big topics. We take a whole week at the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance to teach these things. But just talking about tomatoes, let me just mention that really quick. You can find tons of stuff on the internet about how to save tomatoes. Essentially, it's called a wet method. You put a little water in a jar, you close that with the seeds or the pulpy part of your tomato, and you wait a few days, and this is conditioning that seed. The seeds will drop to the bottom, or at least they'll get heavy, and what you're doing is you're trying to break down, there's a gel casing around that tomato, and tomatillos and eggplants as well. And then you're removing that, you're straining it, and then you have all the dry seeds. That's why you can see with all my tomato seeds, they are in paper towels, because I just dry them out after they've been in the wet method on the paper towels, roll them up, and I save them like this, and then we separate them out. It doesn't have to be on a paper towel. Most people do it on a plate, because then they're not caked together as they could be. These are just some that I've stored from recently. But look up how to do wet method, because people get intimidated by saving tomatoes and cucumbers and tomatillos because of this gel casing. It's not that hard. The other one, Gail, will you go back just one slide, please? It looks like I did take things out. Great. Peppers. You let them dry on the plant, or you can pull them, let them completely dry out, especially they're best germinated when they're red. So after they've gone past their green phase and are in their red or yellow phases, those seeds are ready for harvesting. Let them just dry out. This is what we call a semi-wet method, and then you're ready to store them. Beans, they can dry in the pod, or you can put them out on a tray that has some ventilation coming up from the bottom, and let them dry out that way. Really easy to save. Same with peas. Lettuce, you probably know how lettuce works. I love going in the bust up garden, because we'll have little fluffy lettuce heads a lot of times, because here in Flagstaff, and Paige is the same way. where it's when it starts to get really hot, the seeds bolt, and then we get seeds. So instead of like, oh darn, my lettuce just went, we're like, yay, we have seeds from the lettuce. You know, we get excited at something great that could come from our lettuce bolting, is that we get all those little fluffy seed heads. I just put them in Ziploc bags and then just kind of crush them. And then that way, all of a sudden, the fluff will come off of the seeds, and those tiny little lettuce seeds are still there. And then you could lightly blow into your bag, and then so you'll lose the fluff, and you still have all those light little lettuce seeds. So there are a lot of things that you can do now that are pretty easy, even though I'm not going into the detail per different variety or per different kind of seed. But to save some vegetable seeds isn't too hard, really. Okay, Gail. And then storage. When you're running your seed library, you really have to think about storage. And there's really just this one mantra you can remember, and that's cool, dark, dry. Cool, dark, dry. Just remember that things should be cool, dark, and dry. And the more you keep them in something cool, dark, and dry, the longer that your germination rates will keep high. It'll last a lot longer than you would think. There are seeds that are thousands of years old that they're finding. Like there's a Judean date palm that they now have, I think, 6 different plants from it, and have been able to they have been able to fertilize a Judean date palm to a Jerusalem date palm. And now this plant that we thought it was extinct is there. And that's just by finding a few seeds in someone's drawer that were thousands of years old before the 40 years they've been in a drawer. So these kind of things happen with seeds. Seeds have a lot better germination than we give them credit for. But if you want to make sure that your seed library doesn't have low germination rates, then keep them at less than 80 degrees. That's best to keep them stored that way in a dark place and with relatively low humidity. Don't be putting like desiccated gel packs and things, but make sure they're fully dry before you're stocking them up. I have everything here in plastic bags, but I generally don't like to use plastic. I generally use paper or glass or clay. Clay is even better, just because it allows things to breathe and keep things, the humidity down. And then, of course, the colder the storage, the longer they'll last. A lot of seed companies, they store their seeds in freezers. The Seed Savers Exchange, everything's in a big sub-zero underground cooler. The same with Svalbard. When we talked about Norway, there's a reason that's a seed vault, and that those things are saved upon for the apocalypse, or for things that are against any kind of natural occurrences, because it's so cold down there that those seeds will last, and they're dormant in there in the freezer. Syria, when Syria first went into civil war, they'd lost a lot of their seed varieties, but they had some stored in Svalbard, and so they were able to go get their backups out of Svalbard, so they didn't lose the varieties that a lot of the government programs like to grow. All right, next slide. Oh, I already talked about this. We can pass this up, so I'm not taking all your time. But yes, there are seeds, and they'll last longer than you think. That's a picture. His name is Methuselah, and it's a boy. Here are some resources when you start thinking about your seed library and how you can empower yourself to be able to help run this. These are some of my favorite books. The Seed Garden, Seed to Seed. I use these as references all the time. The Seed Saving Guide, that's another great one. The New Seedsider's Handbook. These are some great resources. And then also, I mentioned the Cindy book too, the Seed Libraries book. There's only one Seed Libraries book out there, and that's the one. But pretty much everything you can get also on seedlibraries.net. Okay, Gail. And then it's just really important to get out there and get people growing. It just takes one seed to hook someone on growing their own food, their own beauty, their own plants, just one seed at a time. And I think that might be the last slide, Gail. I'm not sure. So pretty much just said the same thing. So we're good.
Thank you, Jackee. So there were some things going up in the chat. I didn't check the chat because I was afraid to touch too many buttons while I was sharing my screen, because I'm paranoid of
Let me look.
Technology failures.
Yeah, I was getting a little distracted, so I wasn't watching it. I didn't think any of them were for me. Yeah, I don't see any questions. Does anyone have any questions? Well, like I said, feel free to reach out when you guys get to a place, when you all get to a place that you would like to start a seed library. I'm available to chat.
Well, thank you so much, Jackee. That was really great. I hope that you guys and Paige found that maybe inspiring, and hopefully you'll start your own seed library with some help up there. All right, so oops, there we go. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up our 5-week series with just some information, more information on backyard growers, local food systems, and community supported agriculture. And this is just to maybe give you some ideas and maybe explain some of the terms that you may have heard that are associated with local food. So why should we support locally grown food? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but for the sake of time, I just pulled out a couple of big ones. So food travels a really long distance, and in the US alone, and that's not just talking about the whole global food production and distribution, but in the US on average, food travels almost 2,000 miles to get to you. So that's a lot of resources. And a lot of times that food gets harvested when it's not ripe, or a very long time before you're going to consume it. So when you support locally grown food, the food is fresh, and typically it's harvested 12 to 36 hours before it reaches your farmer's market. So that's really going to help the food retain its nutritional value. And when you support locally grown food, you're helping to support your local small scale growers. And I'm going to show you guys Alissa already shared with you some folks that are growing in Paige, but I'm just going to show you some of the really small growers in Flagstaff. Paige is a very difficult place to grow in, and so is Flagstaff, but people are doing it, and then they're putting their food out there for the community. So it's really great. When you support locally grown food, you're able to connect with your local growers, so that a lot of times, especially if they're vendors at your local farmers market, it allows you to purchase food from growers that align with your values. So a lot of times those small growers will let you know if they're, growing organically or naturally, and maybe they're using specific techniques to help conserve water. Maybe that's a big deal for you. So just getting to know your farmers is a really good thing when possible. And then locally grown food, on the flip side, supports the community as well. So when you buy food from local growers, you help to support your local economy, because those food dollars are staying within the community. And maybe some people are really passionate gardeners and they love doing it, and you can help them develop their business by supporting them. As I mentioned before, and Alissa mentioned this, she had a great example. You can build social relationships. So social events like farmers market. Alissa mentioned that people would come down and just hang out. And I love that. I mean, who wouldn't want to just come hang out on, in that beautiful space with all those fun booths and fun people. So you can help build social relationships within your community. Let's see. Right. Okay. So Jackee kind of mentioned this a little bit in her seed saving talk, but when you support local growers or you're growing your own food, you can be better prepared for potential challenges that affect the food supply. So natural disasters. So we're seeing a lot of irregular weather right now, and we're getting unusual freezes and flooding, and a lot of that will affect the food supply. And then with big agriculture, we are seeing a lot of food safety scares. So think about all of the romaine lettuce recalls that we've heard of in the past few years. So if you research this, a great deal of all of the winter lettuce in the US comes from Yuma. So it comes from one place. So if they have an outbreak of E. coli or another foodborne illness, that causes a big problem across the country. So just some food for thought. Here I pulled this slide up. This was from, so with the big increase in the local food movement, the University of Wisconsin-Madison kind of did a publication where they broke down, I'm going to hide everybody so this slide will show up in the recording. Anyway, they kind of really wanted to define the tiers of the food system so people have a better understanding of where their food is coming from and the relationships between consumers and the growers. So tier 0 is probably going to be most of you all in this class. So they recognize that people are supplying their own food for just their own personal consumption through backyard gardens and community gardens, canning, so food preservation, hunting, gathering, and fishing. But then the next tier is the direct producer to the consumer tier. So this is where your farmers markets come in. So farmers markets, farm stands, and community supported agriculture. So your CSAs, and we're going to define that in the next slide. So here, consumers are definitely getting to know the producers and establish relationships, and it's just a really great thing. And then in tier 2, the farmers here are still really interested in the relationship with the consumer from a grower's perspective. So Organic Valley is a really good brand that you've probably heard of that falls into this tier 2, and they are a co-op. So when you're buying the Organic Valley brand in the Safeway and Page, what Organic Valley is just a co-op of regional farmers that are all working together to put out a product. And they are very clear about how their food is produced. Then the next tier is you're starting to get into your larger volume distribution. So Cisco, this is from Wisconsin, so they have Kroger, so it would be like Safeway here. And I mean, these people still, of course, care about the consumer, but not to the extent as tiers 1 and 2 do. And then tier 4 is your big global distribution, and that's you're absolutely lost that relationship between the consumer and the producer. So what is community supported agriculture when we talk about a CSA? So a CSA is, you can just kind of think of it as a business model. So it's an agreement between the consumer and the farmer. So this is where the consumer will pay for a share up front to the farmer, and this cash that they receive allows the farmers to pay for all the supplies that they need to produce the food throughout the year. So like labor and seeds. And then they don't have to wait until harvest to generate an income. So the consumers receive regular distribution throughout a specific period of time of vegetables, eggs, fruit, or meat, whatever you've signed up for. So that's what, traditionally, that's what community supported agriculture or CSA is. So now I'm just going to, I really want to share with you some of the smaller growers, and Flagstaff Forestdale is one of the biggest smaller growers, but I wanted to show you what they offer to the community and maybe give some folks some ideas of what they can pull off at the local level, maybe up in Page. So Forestdale Farms, Alissa said that they came up and were vendors at your market, and I think that's super awesome. I'm really glad that they did that. So you can buy CSA shares from Forestdale Farms. They also have a booth at our Flagstaff Farmers Market, and they were up in Page. Maybe when you guys get that up and going again, they could come back up. They have a pharmacy, so they're also making homemade salves, deodorants, lip balms, and soaps for the public to buy. And they also have an egg share. And when I was talking about, getting the importance of getting to know your growers, because their values, they're really upfront about how they're producing their food, and their values might align with theirs. So Forestdale Farms is a great example of that, because they have all of their values listed on their website. So they do on-site composting, they have aquaculture, water conservation, biointensive planting and crop rotation, which is going to help with diseases and pests. They do hand cultivation and harvesting. They're pesticide and herbicide free. They use IPM, which you guys learned about from Hattie, antibiotic and hormone free for their eggs, and they are growing heritage food and breeds. Another example here in Flagstaff is the Flagstaff Eco Ranch. They also have CSA shares that you can buy. They grow starts. So they'll grow out starts that people can buy in the community to transplant into their own garden. What's really cool about the Flagstaff Eco Ranch is that they have a big portion of their business is all about education on sustainability and permaculture. They have a lot of students from NAU who work with them from the Sustainable Communities program. Another really cool thing that they do is they work together. Well, in the past, they worked together with another small farm, which is the next slide, to donate food to families in need. So, if that's really important to you, then this would be a great business to support. And then they also advertise that they do water saving techniques. So talk about really challenging places to grow. Flagstaff Eco Ranch, this is probably one of the coldest places in Flagstaff, and one of the hardest places to garden. So just a little inspiration for you all who also have some challenging growing situations in Page. This is Trialali Farm. This is a farm in Doney Park, just east of Flagstaff, or northeast of Flagstaff. She is a retired professor from NAU, and she sells her food. I think she has in the past she has a booth at the Flagstaff Farmers Market. You can buy direct from her farm, I believe, through her Facebook page. And she was part of that CSA co-op donation with Flagstaff Eco Ranch. Very small. Refugia Gardens, they are also very small. They have a CSA, so you could buy shares from them. And what's really cool about this group is that they have a co-op model at the Flagstaff Farmers Market. So typically at the bigger farmers market, like in Prescott or in Flagstaff, well, I know this is true for Prescott, when you rent a space, they want you to be there every single week. And for a lot of really small scale growers, that is super hard. So these guys work a co-op model at the farmers market booth. So they have one booth that they rotate, they make available for other backyard growers. So they're small to be able to sell their food there. So there's a presence every single week. They also They sell eggs and veggies. And another really cool thing about Refugia Gardens is that they go around the city and they collect material for composting from local restaurants, schools, coffee shops, and off of river trips. And this is from their website. In 2020, there was almost 23,000 pounds of food waste that was saved from going into the landfill because of their composting operation. So here's another really small farm. This is Roots Microfarm, and this is just right downtown Flagstaff, and there's not a whole lot of space there. So they sell CSA shares to the community as well, and they sell their produce to local restaurants. And what they have with their business model that's really cool is they have a farm dinner. So I can't remember how often they do this, but you can buy tickets and have a dinner with your friends right in their garden. So I think that's really sweet. I've never been to one, but I've had friends who've been, and they said it was really lovely. And then another part of their business is that they have edible gardens landscaping. So you could hire them to go to your house and set up a garden for you, an edible garden. And then if you wanted to pay the extra money, they will maintain that garden for you throughout the season. So these are just some ideas, maybe to get you excited or maybe daydream about starting maybe a small business or just donating to the your food, making your food available at the farmers market. So this was a video that I had of North Loop Family Farm. This is in Loop, Arizona, and this is a bigger scale, small scale farm. It's definitely a lot bigger than what we just saw, but we don't have time to show the video. But if you want to learn more about North Loop Family Farm, this is Stacy Jensen. His daughter was an intern with me at the Arboretum when I was managing the greenhouse. She's awesome. Her dad is awesome. And what they're doing in Loop is really incredible. So you can look that up on YouTube. So this is the Flagstaff CSA and community market. This is probably our bigger business that we have going on in Flagstaff as far as CSA shares. So I have a CSA share with the Flagstaff CSA and community market, and a lot of the produce comes from either, well, right now it's coming from Phoenix, or I know that they work with Whipstone Farms down in Paulden. But they also have so they have spring, summer, fall, winter shares, and they have a community market. So this is just another venue where small growers can sell their produce to the community. So this is the end of our series, and I'm hoping that you all are feeling inspired to grow your farmers market with some local growers, or maybe start your own side hustle and just support the local food movement. Maybe you want to host a CSA up in Page. That was probably going to take a lot of work, but I mean, it is possible. Or maybe you just want to save seeds, start a library, or just grow your own food in your backyard. So with that, oopsie, I don't know what I did. Can you guys still see me?
Yep.
Okay, stop share. Yay, yay. Okay, well, that wraps up our backyard grower series and Page. I had so much fun. I love this class. Yeah, hopefully we can bring more programming to you all up in Page. I am going to send out a survey. Hopefully you will fill it out. It's going to be coming through Gmail from our Coconino County Extension Gmail account. It's going to be anonymous. Just a few questions that shouldn't take you very long. And one of the questions is what other classes would you like to have up there? And with that, I'm going to have to plug the Master Gardener program and the online Master Gardener course. Karina was part of the very first class. So if this class got you kind of excited to learn even more about gardening, the online Master Gardener course is available in the fall and in the spring. So it's a 16-week class. Alissa took the face-to-face class, but in those 16 weeks, you learn about native plants, you learn about pruning trees, you learn about botany, you learn even more about soils. Yeah, so it's a really great class, and then you could become a Master Gardener volunteer and page, just like Karina and Alissa are. So if you're interested in the online Master Gardener class, go ahead and just send me an email. And with that, do you have any questions, or you just want to say goodbye? Thanks to Jackee. Thanks to Alissa for presenting tonight.
Well, thank you for a wonderful class. It's been really
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. for
Thank
you.
you. Very
Appreciate it.
nice.
It was very nice, very interesting.
All right.
Makes us feel like we can maybe do it.
You can do it.
You can do it. We'll see.
Oh,
All right. Well, hopefully I'll see
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
very
good
much.
one.
you in person. Alissa, I know I'll see you in person.
No, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Have a good one.
Good night, everybody.
bye.